I'm Julie Ross.
And I'm Elizabeth Cohen.
And this is the Parenting Horizons podcast.
Julie Ross is a parent educator and counselor with over 30 years of experience in private practice.
Elizabeth is a clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience in private practice.
Perhaps most importantly, we're parents just like you.
Through conversations covering a wide range of different parenting topics, challenges, and roadblocks, we hope to give you some practical tools that might just help make parenting a little bit easier.
Nobody's perfect, and parenting is challenging, to say the least. But with a few skills under our belts, we might just be able to be good enough parents and enjoy the journey and our children a little bit more in the process.
Welcome back to the Parenting Horizons podcast. I'm Julie Ross, and I am here with my co-host, the brilliant Dr. Elizabeth Cohen. And we have a guest with us today, and we're so excited for this particular guest. She has done a TED Talk, and I think she's going to bring a lot of perspective to what we put out there to our listeners. I'm going to let Elizabeth introduce her.
Thanks so much, Julie. I'm so glad to be here with you and to get to share this space with you and with our guest today and with parents. It's such a special space to share really important tidbits. So this is a big day for us on the Parenting Horizons podcast. I think this is going to be our youngest guest that we've ever had. Now it sounds like you're 5, you're not. But today we're joined by Sonia Suthar, who's not 5 years old, who's a teenager. She's a speaker and youth advocate who focuses on helping adults like us and grownups better understand the emotional lives of teenagers. Her wonderful talk on TED Talk called "I'm Fine: The Lie Every Teen Tells You" she talks about the hidden struggles many teens carry and why they often feel unable to share what they're really going through with their adults in their life. So we're excited to have this conversation with her today and to, as I was saying to Julie earlier, get a sneak peek into what our teens might be feeling. So we're really excited to have you here, Sonia. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So I loved hearing your TED Talk for many reasons. Selfishly, because it supported a lot of what Julie and I tell parents we think their teens are thinking. So we felt validated for that. So we're really excited. And one of the things you talk about in your TED Talk is about how teens live kind of a, quote, double life. One version at school and another at home. And I'm just curious what you think adults most often misunderstand about that experience of a double life or don't know about it. Can you share about that a little?
Yeah, I think that most adults don't even think about the fact that teens may have this double life or like double experience, right? And like each of us can really understand that the people or how we show up and represent ourselves to our close family versus like your work associates or people that you don't know. Like these are like different representations. And so that's kind of how I was trying to illustrate that these teens have this double life, but it's just they're trying to represent themselves in a different way to their parents so they're accepted or so they're safe versus with their friends who maybe they're more comfortable with or versus by themselves where they're like most comfortable usually.
Mm-hmm. And, as a parent, when I hear you say that, I think to myself of the times that I really make a wrong assumption that how my kid is acting towards me must be how they're acting to everybody else. So full disclosure, I've gotten many comments about my kids like, they're so kind, they're so thoughtful, they're so present. And I think, okay, good, right? Because that's not maybe what I see. And so I think it's such an important point for parents to realize that there's so much more to your kiddos that you don't see, so much more that they're not just presenting to us. And maybe, Sonia, one of the words we talk a lot about on our podcast is being curious. Like, is there a way that you think parents could be curious about that? Like, would it be weird to be like, what are you like with your friends? Or I don't know. Is there any way that we as parents could get to know all parts of you?
I think it's a slow process. I think like ask you like, what are you like with your friends. Like, I know my parents have tried that, and like me and my brother are like, what kind of question is that? Like, and like a lot of teens don't self-reflect, right? So they don't really
Yeah,
know. And
right.
so one thing is like, oh, what if they are super close with their best friend, is like bringing that into the environment of like inviting them to dinner. And so then they get to like experience it, because then you have that like safer person that they feel more close with it, or like they feel
Mm,
like they can be themselves with. And so you can start seeing those like cracks, or like if they're really into their like romantic relationship at this point and they feel like you don't accept them, then like bring them to the table, get to know the other person. And a lot of times it's like the parents don't know who the other person is, and so that's why they're afraid, whether it is romantic or platonic. And so I think
mm.
that would be a really good tool.
That's a great idea. And I notice with my daughter that when her friends are around, I do get to see a different side of her, and kind of a deeper side of her in some ways. I think she does act with me, even though I don't set this precedent, like a little bit more compliant and a little bit less loose. One of my favorite experiences was a few weeks ago when she called us and she didn't know she had called us. So I got to hear like this whole conversation, she's in college, this whole conversation between her and her friends and how she talks, different voice, different affect. It was so cool. Like I wasn't freaked out, maybe some parents, but I loved that. And so I love this idea of how to kind of get again a sneak peek by inviting your kid in and inviting their life in instead of keeping it separate. Is that what you're, I think that's what you were
I
Mm-hmm.
saying.
love
Julie, don't
that.
you
Yeah.
love
And
that?
I'm curious about, a lot of the parents that I work with, their teenagers really try to hide that their social life, their romantic life, whatever it might be, their friends from their parents. So I know parents who say, I know that my kid has a boy or girlfriend, but I don't know anything about them. I don't know their name. I don't know anything. Why do you think? I mean, I have an idea, Sonia, but why do you think kids don't want their parents to know their friends?
Yeah, I think they're
Mhm.
afraid of judgment and rejection, of like what the parent is like inputting onto the kid, of like, oh, like this isn't a good friend, or like I don't think you should be with this guy or girl. And so they're afraid of like getting those boundaries, or just having them know what their parents think about said friend or said romantic partner, because if they're not accepted by like the two biggest influences, the people that they like love the most truly, then it's a really tough dynamic. So it's easier to just shy away. And people are mostly like they're unaware they're doing that, but like they're doing it
Right.
anyways.
Mm. You think it's like a default to not trust that your parents will be on your side, I guess. Is that what you're saying, Sonia?
Yeah, and I think it's built from like past little actions too, of like whatever the parent does. And so subconsciously the kid's like, oh, okay, well, if this maybe won't happen, or they may not like my friend for this reason, then I'm afraid of like showing them who they are.
Yeah, and you're mentioning like small little maybe comments or experiences that these teens have had with their parents. I'm wondering if you could talk a little more about that. We think we say things off the cuff. We might not even remember them, but they have an impact on y'all. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that, the kind of subtle things that we say that do land in a way that might lead to what you just said, the behavior of hiding.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you examine how you hold yourself and how you talk to yourself or how you talk to others, it's like, would you want your kid, who you kind of love most in the entire world, pretty much, would you want them to act that way? And so, like, that's just like an easy question to know. Like, well, if you're talking bad about this stranger, you're talking bad about this other human, like, then the
Mm,
kid's going to be like, okay, well, if they can maybe talk bad about this person that they kind of know, then what if they do that to my friend? Or if they're talking bad about themselves, then they're like, the more negativity that's around the kid, even if it's unintentional or it's not towards the kid subconsciously like just taking that all in, because like as parents, you're the biggest example. And since you've been with them since they were just like a little baby, like you're their superhero. Like they're the one that you're like the biggest influence, and they care about you and they want to be like you because you hold so much power in their
Yeah.
eyes.
So interesting. I am just thinking through the vast array of clients that I have. who actually, I think, may intend to be negative because they think their negativity and their judgment will change the child, will change their teenager. If they just
Mm,
explain it rationally, that they're afraid that their kid's going to go out, and do drugs, or afraid that their kid's going to be, out on we're here in New York, out on the streets at 2 a.m. and unsafe. And so they project into the future and say, I don't want you to, I don't want you out till 2 in the morning, or I don't want you. And the kid feels like, well, I mean, I believe, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the kid feels like, why don't you trust me? Why don't you understand that I'm not going to do anything dumb? And I think that what I've seen is that really fractures the relationship between parent and child. That kind of foreboding, or that kind of discouragement, negative expectations, maybe.
yeah, I totally agree. I think that they definitely don't feel trusted, and that definitely fractures the relationship. And so, like, instead of approaching it from like imposing or projecting what you think, like creating that space of like asking questions of like, okay, well, why do you want to go out till 2 a.m.? What are you planning on doing? And then like being transparent, like having that vulnerability statement of like,
Mhm.
I'm afraid that you're going to get into some negative things. And I want to work with you together and collaborate and try to figure out a solution so I feel safe, but still you have that freedom. But then you're also working towards these future goals of you being successful in whatever you want to do when you're older, too, because it's not
Right.
just day to day, right? You're trying to help them become this amazing person who serves other
Yeah.
people, right?
That's so wise. And we talk about this so much on the podcast, and it's so good to hear from your perspective that how it lands, like just sharing your own anxiety instead of putting your
Hmm.
anxiety on the kid, because it not only does it not help your kid, but it impacts the relationship, and the relationship is where all the healing and good learning can come from. And I really was touched by what you said about, and I think parents need to hear this, that we are their superheroes. Like they're always looking at us. They're always looking at us. And as a parent, I think sometimes, and Julie, you speak to this too, like, I don't know, the assumption is like they're not listening to us and they're not looking to us. So we got to grab them and remind them and bring them back. And it's like, it's so interesting. It's like it reminds me of like in couples therapy when a couple is like, wait, you both want the same thing actually. And you're just you both want each other, and you're just not knowing that you both want each other, because I think there's such a feeling of like teenagers trying to pull away and pull away and pull away. But what for parents, I want to throw out this possibility is like, what if some of what we're doing is pushing them away?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's true, Sonia, that some of what we do does push you away?
Totally. I think so. And I think like adding those like transparency statements of like, hey, I didn't mean to push you away when I said this or when I did this, but I was feeling scared. And then as you're creating this like open vulnerability aspect of your relationship, since you guys are the examples, teens and kids are going to do that too. And they're going to be like, well, I was afraid too. And I like love you, but it's going to take time, right? They're going to have to realize that, oh, like this is a safe space, and like my parent is being real with me, and so I want to be real with them back, and they're like the coolest person ever, and so I want to be just like them and be vulnerable with my
I
parent
love
or
that. I
trust
love
them.
the idea of transparency statements, of the parent. um, Sometimes I call it circling back. So something happens, something comes out of your mouth, you don't do it right. But circling back and saying, I realize this is the way I came across, and it was because I'm scared that, something's going to happen to you, because I love you so deeply. And I could have done it a better way. And here's maybe how I should have done it, in so that there is that vulnerability there, and the kid realizes it's not. it's not me, it's mom, or it's not me, it's dad, right? I think that's so important, especially because, you know, teenagers and young adults are very in a very vulnerable place themselves, I think, in terms of they're still shaping themselves into what they will become. And so negative feedback on the part of the parents, in my opinion, is takes an even bigger toll than it might at a different age. What do you think?
I agree. I think that it does take a bigger toll because it's like it projects to the kid that you don't believe that they're good enough, or you don't believe that they're smart enough, or you don't believe that they're just a good person. And that's where those like big negative limiting beliefs come from, is like from those like little things that are built up over time. And it's usually because the parents are afraid that they're not doing good
Mm,
enough. And it's like hard because the kid has no idea, kid has no idea what the
mhm.
parent is feeling.
You know, it's so interesting because I'm remembering hearing my daughter and her friends, and whenever one of the things I'm so struck by, they're 18 and 19, is how much the friends uplift them and upride them and say like, "Girl, you look great in that, and you're amazing. I know you can handle that." And I was thinking, like, what if that's why they want to be around their friends? And because, in contrast to what they might potentially be feeling from us. And I was thinking about, I just had this thought this morning in preparing to speak with you that my kids are both in college and they don't live with me. And I have this tendency that I'm going to bring up with them, that when we do talk, because, they're teenagers. So how often do we talk? I like go through this list of things like, have you done this? Have you done this? And I'm like, that's so annoying. That's so irritating. That's not how I'd actually like to connect to you, but I don't know when I'm going to talk to you again, that kind of thing. And so I think it's really important for me and for parents to name when we're being annoying and when we are missing a moment of
Yeah.
curiosity.
And Sonia, maybe you can give us some insight into when you do touch base with your parents. Um, how do you want parents to interact with you? You know, do you want parents to share about their day? Do you want parents to leave you alone until you've, you know, had some downtime? I mean, what do teenagers want from their parents as opposed to interrogation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And every kid is different, right? And you can see, like, you can notice with your kid, like, the types of times when they have a lot of energy versus, like, they're, like, down and they need that time to just recover. So, like, after school, usually they're just, like, overwhelmed with the day. And, like, I know my brother, he, like, goes to work straight after school and then he's just, like, drained. And so it's, like, that's when you can, like, understand and be like, hey, like, I'd love to have time to connect with you. Can we find some time this week? And then so it's like you're giving the power in their place, but then you're also getting what you want. And so you're asking them, right? And then, like, for me personally, when my mom has like different things that I need to do, when she texts me, it's like all the tasks are there. So it's really easy for me to like think about that. And then when I'm ready to like do this stuff, I can do it. And like she does it for my brother too. Of like, these are the things you get done. Here's when I'd like it to be done. Can you let me know if you need help, or like when if you have any questions? And I think like also adding like, let me know if you need any support. Let
I
me know if
love
you need
that.
any help. I appreciate you doing this for me too. Of just like that, just like piece of like gratitude and kindness, right? Because you're helping them and like they want to feel like they're doing the right thing and they're not just like talking to a robot too. So I think that's really nice. But also creating those times for connection, right? And having I think a lot of people like thrive on routines too. And so if you know like your kid has a lighter day on like one day of the week or like on a Sunday, then you can do like a Sunday brunch. This is something that I did with my family when I was staying at my house, of like having a consistent Sunday brunch, or like having Mondays like weekly dinner. Things like that. So then you have that like consistent routine, and then you also like talk to your kid on other points and
Hmm.
pieces. But also with the interrogation and like asking them to do things, I think asking them and being like, if like they're in the kitchen, they're like making a sandwich, and you're like, hey, like I have a couple things that I want to talk to you about. These are like things that I'd like to do together, or like if you could do on your own time, when would be the best time to talk to you? How can I communicate this to you so it's not too overwhelming, but so we can both get it done? So then also when you ask them that question, then they have to like reflect and they have to figure out like what works for them, which is an incredibly valuable skill to just understand, because like in the workplace they're going to need to know like when they do these things, how to spend time in their romantic and platonic relationships in the future. So it's like really good to start it now, but like giving the power into their hands instead of
Oh, I
telling the
love
other kid
that.
to do.
I really do. It's
I
kind
love
of along that
I
same
love that
line of
too.
collaboration.
Yeah. And modeling, like, is this a good time? And then like, how do you know it's a good time to talk? Want to tell me when exactly what you're saying, like being
Yes.
self-reflective, and then being able to share that with another person. That's
Yeah.
such an amazing
I
skill.
think, it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting, Sonia, you talked about establishing a routine where kind of family sits together. I often recommend that, that be like to have a family meeting, really. Not necessarily, you know, everybody puts on a tie and, you have a whiteboard or whatever, but to have a regular time to come together and without distractions, without the cell phones and the iPads and the, you know, and it can be over dinner. I sometimes feel like that can be fraught if you're bringing up uncomfortable topics at the family meeting, because then it interferes with kind of the digestive aspects of eating and just kind of the sharing of food. But I've come a long way in my thinking, and I'm like, any meeting is better than no meeting, and really even have like a little
Mm-hmm.
agenda about, starting the meeting with something pleasant, starting the meeting with, I just want to compliment you on how you, achieved that goal this week that you wanted to, or I, want to compliment you on, the fact that you really pitched in and helped with the kitchen and the chores there yesterday. And then go on to, what do we need to talk about as a family? Because we're a unit. We're not satellites in space. We're a unit that has to work together. And then again, the vulnerability that you talk about, Sonia, I think comes into play so strongly here, is that the parents need to be willing to take feedback as well from
Mm-hmm.
their kids. Well, mom, I really, I was really disappointed that I felt like you attacked me the other day when I came home from school and you started immediately asking about my homework instead of just giving me space. And I find that parents, um and my kids are 37 and 32. I have to count on my fingers because they're old. And uh and but I find that, having that place that is a system, a space for everybody to be, and knowing that, it's going to be scheduled when there's no soccer game, when there's no business meeting for mom or dad, when there's, that brings a sense of importance to what the family is.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I had a family coach, and she told us to input that, and it was wonderful. And I have a very business mind, so I loved a like approaching of like what's working well, what isn't working well, how can we fix it. And so we did it on Monday. We had Monday family meetings, and maybe you don't do it for like dinner, but like
Yeah, I
do it
love
for
that.
dessert or something like that. So it's kind of like fun in that type of way. Like I remember like my dad like eating ice cream and like my brother eating cookies while we're doing this. And yeah, like starting with something good, and like what we did is we complimented each person. So like I would go around compliment my brother and my mom and dad, and then they would go around and do
I
the
love that.
same thing. And then we brought up like what isn't working well, and like also I think it would be good to like add that like a vulnerability statement of like, hey, like I had a tough
Mm.
week, and so like if I presented myself unhealthy, or like I like know like a woman are like on their like cycle sometimes, and like they kind of just need to like bring it out there and be like, hey, like I just had a tough month or like tough week, and I just am sorry if I was snappy or anything, just so like the family knows that it wasn't their fault too. And so like the individual can also say that of like, oh, I had a really tough business meeting, or like I had a tough day at school, things like that too, to like input that in. And I think that also comes with time, right? Once they're like used to the family meeting. And so then we do like what's working as you're talking about, but we also
Mm.
bring old business. So like old business is things that we've solved from previously, and so we can just like make sure that everything is still working. And my dad likes to illustrate like we're on
Yeah.
the same team. And since we're all on the same team and we're trying to get to everything, like we're trying to make sure everyone succeeds, like it's a good like having like each family have a like phrase or something to just keep them united. I thought same team was kind of cringy for me because at the time I was doing it when I was like senior year, so I was like, what is this? But like when you definitely start young, it also is like it holds stronger. And I
Mm-hmm.
think like each family is different. So like maybe one family does like the idea of like putting on suits and like dressing up for the
I love
fancy
that.
meeting. Or like and yeah, so it just like depends on the person. And the easiest thing for like any like routine or habit to stick is right the habit stacking. So like for us it was super easy because we had to eat dinner, so then we just like
Yes.
added on top of it. So if you're not going to do it during dinner and you're worried about like digestive system, which is totally fair because like
Yeah.
sometimes things get a little
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just make sure that like you're able to habit stack in a way that you can still have that consistent knowing that you're going to be able to hit it
I love
most
that.
every
I
week.
love that word
Mhm.
habit stacking.
That's great.
I want our listeners to really
Mhm.
hear that, um, because I think that's really important to the success of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I mean, there's such, vulnerability, transparency, these words that you're using, they're so essential for relationships. And I think there's something that you said that's kind of controversial, and I want to go back to, and absolutely agree with. And sometimes when I share about how I've parented, people have reactions to this topic as well, which is that you use the P word. You talked about
Mm.
power, and you talked about giving the teenagers the power back. And I agree with you completely. And I think that in our culture, we parents are told, don't ever let
Yes.
your teenagers have the power. Take it back from them. You
Yes.
better be in control. And it is such a misconception and a myth that
Mm-hmm.
holding power over, I mean, and this we can talk about in every environment, power over is somehow going to lead to more collaboration or connection. It will just lead to isolation. And so I love what you said about giving your teenager power. One, I mean, it's not even giving your teenager power. Let's be honest. It's just acknowledging that you both
Yes.
have power. Like if you're in a relationship, two people have power, right? It's not, who am I to give it to
Mm-hmm.
you,
Yeah.
actually? It's yours. Own it. You own your power. I'll own my power, and let's
Yes.
come together. And so I think that parents listening might be a little ooh by that. But let's name it here. So do you want to talk a little bit about allowing teenagers their natural power?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relationship where you are the mentor, you are the guide, right? You're not telling them what to do, because if you tell them what to do, then you're removing their autonomy. And if you're removing their autonomy, then they're going to be afraid to take risks and do things for themselves, and they're always going to be looking to you. And as a parent, you want to set them up for success and happiness. But if they aren't able to do things on their own, then they're not going to be able to have that success, right? They're not going to be able to like go and like get ketchup if they need it, or send their plate back if they don't like it. They're just going to be afraid because they don't have that autonomy or power, even in their like tiny like 4 person, however big your family is, relationship. And so you need to like allow them this sense of like, we're working on this together. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to like have no superiority or authority, but it's going to give this sense of respect that I think a lot of people are worried about. I think like by giving away your power, like allowing the kid to have power, there's going to be no respect in the relationship. But I think I find that to be the opposite, as long as you're demonstrating it correctly, of like, well, we're working on the same thing together, and I respect your mind, and I respect that, like, the kids are going through their own experience, right? Each generation has their totally different experience of like how it is being growing up. And so like with these kids, like they have good ideas, and like allowing them to like collaborate together and giving these good ideas, but then also parents having boundaries. Like if you have a boundary and you don't want your kid to go past 12 p.m., then you can illustrate that, but be like, I want you to win too, and I want you to succeed, and I want you to get what you want too. So let's try to figure this out together. And it's like you guys are working together, and kids have boundaries too, and that's good, right? They're like, I like if you knock before you enter the room, or I don't want you to go through my phone, things like that. And this is where you have to like
Mm-hmm.
build that trust. And like I've experienced all of these different things of like my parents didn't want me to go out past midnight. I was really frustrated, and like until like getting out of the house, like that was just something that was true to me. And like my parents would go through my phone, and then once they realized that there was more trust and respect in the relationship and I hid less things, as they stopped going through my phone, they were able to find more power in that. Because like once they stopped going through my phone, I stopped hiding things and I was honest with them.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Hmm. I remember learning in grad school, I think it was, that one of the things as parents we want, and Julie and we talk about this, you know, friends are great for fun. But as you said, mentor and advisor, adults really are the ones who can really advise you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always learned and thought that and I say this to my clients, the most important thing is that your kids feel comfortable coming to you. Like a lot of the stuff that I hear from my kids, I'm like, I wish I didn't know that. Like, I wish you didn't tell me, but I'm glad you did because I'm the one who can help you with it. But if you overpower your children, they will not come to you when they are really struggling. They will go to people their age who don't know
Yes.
anything about anything and they will take
Yeah,
advice from them, right,
100%.
Julie? It's like you you just want to have this open dialogue so that the advisors are available. If any of you were in grad school or went to college and had an advisor, right? If you had an advisor who was really curious about you and wasn't going to judge the class you took or you got a D in, you would go back and
Yeah.
ask them advice. So you want to be that to your kids. And it is really hard. I think that yeah, this shift from being powering over to collaborating with mentor. I love that idea of being
Mm-hmm.
a mentor. Or coach. I mean, Julie helped me when my kids were starting to age, about being their coach instead of being their
Right,
boss.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked that. That was really helpful
I
when
think
Julie
one of
told
the
me that.
things that's hard for, at least for the parents that I work with, is that there really has to be a shift in mentality as your child enters pre-adolescence. And because we're so used to keeping the baby from putting things in light sockets, really using control to make sure that they're safe, which is appropriate, up to a certain age. And the shift that I think has to happen is toward that more collaborative approach that you talked about, Sonia. And, and not emphasizing power in the relationship, not emphasizing control in the relationship, but emphasizing relationship itself. And really asking yourself as a
Mm-hmm.
parent, is what I'm going to do or say going to help my relationship with my kid or hurt the relationship with my kid? And if it's going to hurt the relationship, either don't say it at all. I have what I call my zippy the lippy rule. Either don't say it at all or find a different way to say it that is empathetic and kind and cooperative. And because there's some things that parents do need to talk to their teenagers about. um, but the way that you talk about whatever it is really makes all the difference.
Yeah. It makes me think about when we were talking, like, why won't we talk to our kids like we would talk to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not our friends. Like there's a
Right.
boundary, clear.
Yes.
But right, Julie, it's like right? Like if there's something you're like, I want to say that to my friend that she should not do that, but I'm not going to do that because that wouldn't be good for the relationship. Like, why wouldn't
Right.
we apply that to our
Exactly.
kids?
It's about the respect.
Right?
It's about talking with
Respect.
respect. You know, I had a
Exactly.
client who was really frustrated with the fact that her kid had no table manners and was just like shoveling food into her mouth. And the mother said, you know, why are you doing that? Why are you shoveling food into your eat more slowly? And I said to the mom, I said, would you say that if it was me? If it was me sitting across from you at the table and I was shoveling food into my mouth, would you say that to me? And she would, no. And I said, you shouldn't be saying it to your kid then. Right.
Oh, that's
How
great.
we
I
treat
love it.
others, we should be
Yeah.
treating our children with the same respect and the same compassion, you know, that we treat others with.
And it's making me think about what Sonia said in the beginning too, Julie, that about why kids might not want to bring people around. Like, because my mom's super
Right.
judgy at the table, right? Like she's going to tell them how they're
Exactly.
eating,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like this, it has this impact that you don't
Yeah.
even realize down the road. So it's so, yeah, it's such a great example. Sonia, I want to ask you, I can hear all these parents I work with saying, but my kid doesn't want to talk to me. You don't understand. My kid just closes the door and goes on their phone. They're not interested in a relationship. Maybe your kids want a relationship, but my kids don't. So, what would you say to a parent who's just, and I think even in that comment, I can feel it as I said it, is like they feel
Mhm.
so rejected, right? So, can you talk a little bit about what you would recommend to a parent in that position?
Yeah, I definitely was that kid. And like me and my brother
Mm.
definitely were those kids. And something and it's also like kids have to have growth. And teens must grow too. And like that's where I found a lot of freedom in that because I had to realize that my parents weren't perfect because I was worshiping them so much and they like demonstrated that they were perfect and I had to realize that they weren't perfect. And finding grace in that I was able to forgive them. But that's from the teen's perspective, right? And that's a little hard to like communicate to
Right.
your teen when you're the parent. So, from the parent's perspective, holding space. And what I mean by like holding space is like, okay, the teen like shuts the door and you're like, you can text them or like knock on the door and be like, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, if you want to talk, if you just want to sit next to me, if you just want to go on a walk together, maybe you want to like go get ice cream. That's not like an everyday thing, but like sometimes if you really feel like they had a hard day, right? And so it's like these like little things of like I'm here and just consistently saying something that you think that your teen would want to hear and everyone wants to know that like they have somebody who's just right there if they need them and like be like hey do you want to talk if you don't want to talk it's totally fine but I just want to say that I'm here your dad's here move up leave like I'm here to like support you and I want you to succeed or I want you to be happy and it's that consistent thing of just like making sure that your door is open you like see your teen come home from school and you smile at them and say like hi like how are you even if they don't answer you just like you're just there you're just that grounding presence that like if you could imagine being in their situation if they had a really hard day like school is tough school's always been tough it's just like something like that and like friends are hard like if you could imagine being in their position what would you want from your parent what kind of support and it's usually just that quiet knowing that they're there because one day they're going to open their door and they're going to be like hey like can we talk or like
Mhm.
can we go on a walk or something like that and you're just going to listen you're not
Mhm.
going to try to fix anything something that my parents always tried to do every single time like I was open to them is they tried to
Yeah.
fix something and it's like I get it because like I do that to my brother I do that to my friends but like not everyone wants to be fixed I mean you can tell in your romantic relationships too it's like your husband's always trying to fix something and you're like I just want you to listen to me like don't try to fix anything I have all the answers I just
Right.
need to like talk about it and so something that I talked about in my TED talk was this like question of, do you want to be heard, helped, or
Mm,
held? And it's three H's. Do you want them to hear you? Do you just want to vent? Do you want to be helped? Do you want advice, or do you just want to
mm,
be held? And not every teen wants that physical touch, but
mhm,
some really do. And so like you can always be there like, hey, I'm here for a hug. I'm here to help you, but I'm also here to just hear you.
mhm.
And so like them knowing that is like it brings a sense of calmness, and I bet like you guys can feel it too, of just like, I wish like somebody would tell that to me if like I was going through something.
Yeah. I think, Sonia, I'm so
I
appreciative. I
love
love the
that.
three H's. That's just such a wonderful intervention. I just want to say for parents, because I work with a lot of parents,
Mm-hmm.
that what you're suggesting is brilliant. It is, some people talk about it as the potted plant of a teen, that you just sit there as the plant and at some point they're going to come and water you. And for parents who are listening, this takes a lot of emotional
Yeah,
forbearance. And if you have not gotten that as a child yourself, it is going to be hard for you because
Mm-hmm.
it is requiring a ton of patience. It is very unsatisfying. I mean, my husband always laughs and says, Liz, why are you asking them to watch a movie with us again? They never want to watch a movie with us. I'm like, but every time I ask them, right? But I don't have the rejection sensitivity. But many people do, especially if you
Mm-hmm.
never got that. So when you're talking, it just comes, I really want people to know that is hard and that is personal work of the parent. It's not the kid's job to answer you after 75 times of asking them if you want to watch a movie. Yes, that's not what we're going for. It's how do you have enough emotional forbearance and emotional space yourself to keep approaching your kid until and if they say, I'm coming towards you. And that is, and just from a parent perspective to a teen, to you, that is a big ask psychologically for a person. And so it
Mm-hmm.
requires a lot of work. And so that's one of the
yeah,
work that Julie and I do, right? We hold that space to help those parents create this space so that the kids, it's a trickle down of spacious, of
it
holding
is.
space, right,
Yeah, it
Julie?
really is. I often describe it to parents as it's your job to open the door. It is not your job to grab your child from the other side of the door and pull them through, right? You open the door, they shut the door. You open the door, they shut the door. It's that emotional forbearance that you're talking about, Elizabeth, and it's hard.
Yeah. And nobody said, and nobody said when you have a kid, it's going to bring you total satisfaction all the time. Like they are not there to bring you that
No.
satisfaction. And that, I think, Julie, if you find this too, and I don't know, Sonia, you found this, I think there's sometimes an expectation of, but I've been so nice
Oh,
to you.
yeah.
Why are you being so mean to me?
No.
That's not how this
No,
works.
it's not how it works at all, and I see that all the time in almost every client. It's like, I put you through
Yeah.
college, or I paid for your expensive private high school, and you're not showing me any gratitude. Well, it's not it's not the young person's job. It was offered. It's a
No,
free gift that the
no.
parents should be giving to the young person.
Yeah, and also I think that they haven't been
Yeah.
trained on gratitude, right? And so from the parents like perspective, approaching of like, hey, like I'm grateful for you, and I'm so happy that I got to send you to this amazing school because it's going to help with your development, and just like those little things, because like you exemplifying that gratitude, then they're going to start thinking about it subconsciously. It's going to go into their brain, and they're going to be like, yeah, I do like this school a lot. And they, in like from my perspective too, like even though I definitely didn't say it as much as I should have, I was so grateful for my parents and everything that they did and all the support that they put into me. But I didn't talk about it as much as I should have. And that's something that like it's a growth factor on both sides. And so like every kid is definitely grateful, and they know it in the back of their minds at some like some deep dark space. but it's an incredibly big thing for them to say it too, because it's not hard for, I mean, it's not easy for parents. It's definitely not
I
easy
like
for
that
kids either.
idea of parents
Yeah.
modeling it, just the same way that parents need to model saying, I'm sorry, right? When a parent makes a mistake, and
Yes.
modeling the
Mm-hmm.
gratitude and catching the kid doing it right. I think that's so empowering for the kid to have somebody that they do respect and that they do love, that, in their parent, to have that person say, you know, I screwed up, or I'm so grateful that you took out the trash. Sometimes when I'm counseling parents, the marital stuff comes into the picture, and I find that it's kind of the same there. That you know, thank your partner for doing the chore, whatever it is, and the chore can be something they always do. Maybe they always take out the trash. That's their chore. And
Right.
to say thank you for doing that, and just acknowledging that you see that happening. You see what's going on, and that you have that gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And then your
Yes.
kid's gonna see that. Your kid's gonna see the love that you have between your partner, and they're gonna want
Yes.
that for themselves.
Exactly. Well, Sonia, it has been such a joy to have you and your incredible wisdom. I mean, I'm
Me
grateful for
too.
you and your self reflection and willingness to come out and talk about this. It's a gift to all of us parents to hear you, really.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
You've been listening to the Parenting Horizons podcast. If you would like to reach Elizabeth Cohen, you can go to www.centerforcbtinnyc.com.
And if you'd like to reach Julie Ross, please go to www.parentinghorizons.com.